I am not 5 minutes late. I was not playing Helldivers. I didn't almost forget I was streaming today. Well, technically I was meant to stream yesterday, but that didn't happen. Right. Everything on OBS is looking good, so let's move over to this window. There we go. Very careful because I found out you can hide polygons when in edit mode, but when you leave edit mode, they come back. And the whole reason I was hiding those polygons was to make sure Twitch didn't ban me, just in case. I suppose the safest way of doing it would be to avoid the top half completely. And let's try working on the legs a little bit. I'm honestly not too sure about how we want to go about this. Obviously, we've got our edge loop we can bring down. But whilst I've put that line there for the pelvis, it's probably going to be a lot shallower. More like a 45-degree angle to make sure that things move and bend properly. So rather than being here, it's probably more like the top of the leg starts here and moves down. Whether that will work, not sure. What I have been doing is making sure that I have been saving this as increments with names to make sure I know what I was doing at the time. Right, I think ads are over for the next hour, so we can carry on. Because we could simply figure it was going to be like this, link these ones together, and move down, which honestly could be the way it's meant to work. What I should have done was make sure I took an image of the topology used on good models around this area, so I had at least some vague reference of what to work towards. And yep, brain mushed. Spent too long shooting bugs. Brain very much in a I don't know if I could possibly stream mode. So I thought, if I'm going to be brain rotted anyway, I might as well do brain rot that's vaguely helpful for me. Oh, maths is always bad. I have just pulled up the topology I was working from, and I was definitely overthinking this. They 1, 2, 3, 4, and then one at the bottom. So we need a couple of cuts here. That's 1. 2. 3. And that makes 5 polygons. Okay. I never got to the point where imaginary numbers were a thing we had to care about. As soon as I was given the option to not have to do maths in any form, I took that chance. And then, like an idiot, I decided to start enjoying things like factory games. Where it's only my own fault that I might have to do maths at some point. Especially when trying to speedrun. Oof. Oh god, how's this gonna? I don't know how this is gonna work. Um, because these are all gonna need to scale inwards. Honestly, I have no idea. At the moment, I'm just trying to get the actual model working. Rigging is a totally separate thing. And that's one thing I was never good at when I did this at uni. It's already bad enough that I'm having to remember how to do this now, years later. But animation, I left that to the other people that were better at the program than I was. Like, I know rigging for 2D is already a pain, but it's a different kind of pain. Because whereas with like a 3D model like this, it's all one piece. With a 2D model for live 2D, all of the bits are separate. So there's like 4 images or 5 images just for the mouth alone, and the same for each eye. So like you separate the white of the eye, the iris, the eye shine, the eyebrows, the upper eyelid, the lower eyelid, and you animate them individually to different keyframes, because it's a lot simpler to do it that way than it is to do the entire, like, just draw. You could, like, if you really wanted to, just draw an eye and then say, oh, I'll just scale it up and down. That would theoretically work, but it would look shit. And so, like, with these models, let's make sure I've got the stream open so I can see how far I'm zooming in. So, like the eye, the upper eyelid, the bottom eyelid, both separate. The white of the eye and the eye shine, both separate. The pupil and the iris are also both separate. So, and that's just for one eye. Do the same on the other. The mouth, the upper lip, the bottom lip, the upper teeth, the bottom teeth, the tongue, and the back of the mouth are all separate pieces. The hair, you can probably tell, but like the back part is separate from the front part. So when the front one moves, it gives a bit of an impression of depth. And then the bit of the front, oh god, that looks really bad when looking up close. Ugh, let's not look at that. And like the ears, you wouldn't think much, but I think there's 4 pieces for the ears. And then that's just like altogether probably about, what, 20 pieces, 20 images just for the head. And then you've got the fact that, there's front clothing, back clothing, the arms are separated, the wings are separated. Luckily, the legs, nothing happens with the legs, so I didn't care about that so much. But that's already a pain. But at least it's a pain that I understand how to do now. If I had to do it again, I could. I don't want to. At least until I do my next model. Oh, the thing is, underneath there is like full underwear underneath this model. It was just easier to, when you're drawing it, like most, I don't know about a lot of artists, but drawing this, it was easier to draw the body completely blank first and then add bits on top. It's what I'm doing with the 3D one. I'm making the base model first, and then I'll be building things on top of it when I know what the contours are. Because that way you can like zoom out and go, okay, the body looks like the kind of proportions I want. How would clothes fit on this body? Badly is usually the answer, but we'll ignore that one. And so whilst you can't tell, I mean, you can just about tell there is actually a breathing animation. Where the chest kind of like expands and goes up a little bit. No one ever sees it because it's so zoomed out. I don't know why I put the effort in, but I did. Just to make it look like at least it was living. But not even so much sculpting. Because with sculpting is a totally separate thing. You can actually like, at least with this 3D model, I mean, I can zoom out because I have hidden the bits that Twitch might ban me for. So there are just still 2 giant caves there. But this is, I'm trying to think of because there was a similar thing with level design, depending on the engine you use. There's subtractive and additive space. Subtractive is like clay. You have a big chunk of clay, you take bits away. or a big chunk of stone and you take bits away. But then you have additive space, which is like the source engine, where you have to put things in first and then start cutting away at them. Which is the reason why you often get like world leaks in source, because it's just an empty void. When you're making a level in source engine, you have to physically build the skybox first, and then you build the stuff inside it. Whereas, say, Unreal, at least Unreal 3, which was the last time I messed with the engine. I know we're like Unreal quadrillion now, I don't know. I think 5 or 6. But if they've kept the way they did it with the subtractive way, which is the entire world is just a giant block of clay. And then you just cut the world that you want out of it. Which means there's never a world leak, you never get lighting issues, you never get nothing wrong. And I don't know why Valve don't do that with Source. It would save so many problems with leaking. But I am not. Kind of a bit. I mean, Unity itself is actually it's the same way of working as the Source engine. You have the blank space, and you add stuff in, and then you like. So like you add a plane for the floor, you add walls, you add a ceiling, and you put stuff inside. The old Unreal Engine that I used to use, you first of all had to basically like make a cube and cut it out of the space and say this is where my world is going to be set, and then you could build inside there. All of that going to say that this that I'm doing right now is very much like the source engine, the additive. We're having to add things in before we can mess with them, rather than say sculpting, which now let me just make sure those are out of view, which I'll go a little bit lower just in case the end bits. But with oh, never mind. It's just gonna. Oh, never mind. It's actually just it's completely ignored the fact that I'm not selecting things right now. But I think with sculpting, if this works the way I think it does. Oh no, it does. It's just not very pronounced. Increase the strength and increase the radius. So like you can. I mean, to be fair, this would probably be a good way of actually like doing the, the breasts. But there has to be something there for you to work on. There's also subtract, which just goes whoop. I'll have to remember that that is an option because I never messed with sculpting in Blender because it was never there when I last used Blender. Let's go back into modeling. But I do like that, unlike the thing I have to use at work, which me and a couple of other people have so many issues with when it comes to putting menus in the right order for how you want to do it. With this, it's wonderful. At the top, you have layout. Set your layout. Then, model your thing. It's just it's just your basics, like make your actual model. And then, if you want, you can move to sculpting to add finer detail. Then, you go to the UV editing, where you set the UV coordinates up for your textures. Then you go for the texture part of it. Then you go for your shaders. It's all in order. It's wonderful. Anyone who ever watches this VOD back on YouTube at a later date, if you are a software engineer, make sure every single thing you do follows the pattern you want people to click things in. Please, for the love of God. Coming from someone that has to use software on a daily basis that has things in the wrong order, and idiots use them in the wrong order because they think you have to go from left to right, and it keeps messing up, and I have to be the one that fixes it. Please make these things more user friendly for idiots. Not everyone who uses computer programs are smart. To be honest, the cancel and OK is also a thing in some. You get so used to, like, let's say you want to, like, save a thing. So most programs will have OK and then cancel. But then some things will have cancel and then OK. And that is not OK. All of them should follow the same principle. Because people get in the hang of doing one thing. If you suddenly drop a new program on them that does it differently, it's going to cause a lot of people a lot of annoyance. I know people out there that do this might think, oh, but it's like, it's an artistic. No, it's not. It's a user interface. Shut up. It's not artistic. It's. There's a set thing you need to do to make it accessible to everyone. Exactly. Setup wizards do the same thing every now and then. You get so used to clicking on the first button because that's the one you have to do, and then all of a sudden they'll swap them around. Or the worst ones are the ones that, like, make the button you want to click be the install everything button instead of the just install what I want button. You know, those programs that are like, oh, it's free, but we also include like 5 other programs just because we get money from them for doing this. Which is fair enough. They get money. I'm not going to complain. But making it so that your setup wizard purposefully makes it so people are going to accidentally do that, that's not on. That's annoying. That's bad design. You're being a dick. Don't do that. But mainly, my thing is, remember that not everyone that uses your program is going to be smart. Some of them are old. I know there are people at my workplace that are like, oh, I remember when we actually had legitimate spreadsheets, and they were talking about actual paper spreadsheets to do this, and it was in the 80s. Hell, some of the stuff was still paper based up until a few years ago because I kept on moaning at them saying we should not be doing this with paper. Why do you think we have computers for? Computers can do so many of these things automatically and save you so much time. That's the point of them. And that is what local government's like in the UK. It's full of idiots. I mean, I am also an idiot, but you know, I'm just a slightly educated idiot. I always like when silly things like that happen because, you know, you never think that there's going to be anything major in life. And then all of a sudden someone's like, oh yeah, you realise that was the first time anyone's ever done that in the area. And you're like, oh, huh? gone. Some. There we go. I was gonna say something had gone weird with it then, but no, it was just me being silly. Well, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, at a certain point, even now, it gets to a point where it's still cheaper to transport data by vehicle when it gets to a certain amount you're trying to move. Granted, we're talking in like the petabytes or whatever the like really ridiculous one is, but it is still at a certain point more feasible to just send a hard drive with everything on in a car than trying to send it through the internet and wasting a load of time. Oh, I see. Number nine is not, in fact, the opposite thing of that. It's actually the opposite of whatever you're currently looking at. Okay, it's flip it 180 degrees. Oh no, even now, it still gets to a point when, I mean, let's say when it comes to like gigabytes and terabytes, it's still probably easier to do it via the internet. But when you're looking in like the I think petabyte and the ones above that, like huge entire databases, oftentimes it is cheaper, maybe not faster, but cheaper to load the hard drive into a car and drive the car to the other destination and just plug the thing in than it would be to send it through the internet. It's more efficient to send it by a car. I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me. When it gets, like I say, it for the most part, it's like when you're just sending like bits of information. I mean, obviously, like this stream, it's going everywhere, and it's probably you're hearing this about maybe 20 seconds after I say it, but it's only sending a small fraction of data constantly. It's not sending like an entire massive thing at once. If at the end of this stream I try and send an entire 2 hour long video, it takes, well, bearing in mind I don't download it and then upload it to YouTube. I just use Twitch's inbuilt thing because I'm lazy and I don't do any editing. I should actually learn to do better and probably start doing some of that. But it still takes about 10 minutes to transfer one VOD from Twitch to Google, and they have massive servers, and they're doing this millions upon millions of times every second anyway. Yeah, it really does start getting like ridiculous when you start thinking about it. I've got a feeling that's how my office does their backups as well. They actually have someone physically turn up, take a take a physical copy of the databases and everything, and then drive it to the secure location so they're off-site as an off-site backup, rather than copy it and send it via the internet. I mean, for some things I can kind of get it. Like maybe if you're in like the kind of job that requires like a ridiculous amount of security, and you don't want to give even the slightest chance that someone might intercept the data, then fair enough. That makes sense. Send someone with a car to pick it up. Yeah, but they don't think that because you're going to need to know. It's going to be a lot harder to find out when the transfer happens, work out which car they're in, and do all these things than it would be for some hacker to just dump a keylogger or something on a computer in an office and hijack it halfway through the, you know, like when it's being processed. I don't know. I'm not that kind of science person. I don't do computers much. I can use software, which is enough. I don't know. I've got a friend in computer security, and he laughs whenever he hears about people buying Bluetooth um pleasure devices, let's say, because he knows how easy they are to break into. You can quite easily hack people's love ents if you know what you're doing, which I find is hilarious because that is just like just someone walking in like you've got these people out there trying to hack to steal information or steal money, and then you've just got this one person out there hacking love ents to make people come in public. It's just such a silly idea. I hope you didn't find where it was. So I'm probably very embarrassed if you found where it was. Right, let's see. So we've got those four. So now this is actually starting to get to the point where this is actually going into the upper leg portion now. Well, the hotel thing, any public Wi-Fi, people are like, well, anyone who's sensible won't do anything on public Wi-Fi that they aren't like completely okay with doing because obviously you people do just like easy crack into it. They could probably get your data quite simply from that. And hotels aren't, they don't have a load of computer people in to make sure that security is tight. But I didn't even trust the guest Wi-Fi at my workplace. I didn't even trust the private Wi-Fi at my workplace because you could still see it as a private network on the Wi-Fi if you were nearby on a phone. So there's going to be someone that can probably find a way in. And yeah, I just didn't trust them, to be honest. Yeah, that makes sense. Just don't have anything of value and people won't bother you. Unfortunately, these days, a lot of people have a lot of stuff that is actually of value. I do like that one. Growing up, like in '90s and early 2000s, when hackers in films were a big thing, it was always hilarious to see these people going, "Oh my god, they're hacking into the net, they're hacking into the computer," and they're like typing away frantically at the keyboard, and they could just reach down and turn the plug off, and boom, connection severed. It's like, why do you not just do that? It's just even as someone that didn't know hacking, I'm like, well, if you turn the computer off, they can't get in, can they? But just for once, I would love to actually have had a serious like spy drama or something where someone starts off being like that and then just someone walks past them and flips up a switch and goes sorted. I honestly have forgotten. There are that many shows like that, like CSI and NCIS and whatever that. What at one point there was one that was Navy investigation. To be fair, that could be NCIS. I don't know, but there is one that was like the criminal proceedings around the Navy. It's like, how focused do you want to get? Who stole the crayons? Oh, it was probably one of the Marines. Yeah, because CSI came along and was actually It wasn't accurate in any way, but it was at least entertaining, and that made people go, "Oh, people are watching it, therefore we must copy it." Oh, but we can't just do crime scene investigators because CSI is already doing that. What could we do instead? And then they kept like trying to think of like interesting places that crime scenes might have happened. And that's when you get things like NCIS. It's like, well, what if crimes but in the Navy? I've never actually watched Castle. I think the only one that I watched a little bit of that wasn't just generic CSI or Special Victims Unit, the spin off that they did. I watched a little. I've watched a couple of episodes of House, mainly because Hugh Laurie is just a good actor, and I was like, yeah, you know what, I'll give it a go. And it was okay, I guess. Yeah, mixing the whole, not so much criminal part, but the investigation part with medicine rather than crime was an interesting idea. But the problem is, I don't really watch a lot of TV these days. Yeah, House is about the Doctor, but it's usually it seems from what I've watched of it, it seems very much like it's still a crime procedural. So it's like person comes in, we have this evidence. What could it be? It's not lupus. Shut up. It's never lupus. Apart from that one point when it was. But the characters were characters. They tried making it a bit more interesting than another just generic. It's crimes happening. Ooh, spooky crimes. But like I say, I think I only watched. I think I've maybe seen like 4 or 5 episodes of it. And I think that was one of the points about he was not a good doctor, but he was a good doctor. His bedside manner was horrific. He's got a fever, a runny nose, and exhausted. Oh, have we checked for insert like extremely rare disease here? No, we haven't. Why would we check for that? Well, why don't you try it? No. And then 30 minutes later, we tried it. Turns out he was right. How did you know? Well, and then he turns into Sherlock Holmes, but for medicine, and it's like, well, when he came in, he had a slight limp as well, which we didn't actually mention anything about because he's obviously had it for at least some time. Therefore, he didn't think it was worth mentioning. And then there was the fact that he kept squirming when he was sitting down, which means he must have been itchy, and just listing off a bunch of things that happened, but no one said anything about. And it's like, oh, okay, that that's fine. If I knew that disease existed, that would have been really cool. I'm sure I remember one that where the person went in and he said, "You're pregnant," and she's like, "No, I'm not." He's like, "No, you're really pregnant." And the entire episode was him trying to convince her she was pregnant when she wasn't because she'd never had sex. And it turns out she was pregnant. And it was some really, 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 really convoluted reasoning as to why it happened. Unfortunately, no. I think the joke was made about the second coming of Christ in the thing. Wait, hang on. Was it that way, or was it the other way around? I'm trying to remember now. It's been a long time. It was either she wasn't pregnant, or either she was pregnant but she didn't think she was, or she was completely, completely 100% sure she was pregnant, and House was like, "No, you're not." Although to be fair, those could both have been separate. They could have been very, very separate episodes. It could well have been a Christmas special as well. You're asking the wrong person. I'm not a Christian. I have no. Well, let's say I have no horse in this race, but then that's a bit too close to a donkey. So maybe let's not talk about that. Okay, so we've got this. Want to keep it roughly level. Then we're gonna go like that. See that I don't know what the writers were smoking or drinking at the time that they wrote half of the episodes. Because you always find there's just something weird that has happened. Some of them probably really normal, and you don't think anything of it. But the problem is those aren't the episodes that make people talk and want to go and watch more House. Okay, let's see. How is this actually going to work? You need to be. But honestly, if you enjoy that sort of thing, you should have a look at for I think it's called Chubby Emu on YouTube. So Chubby and Emu the bird. He's a doctor, and you might have seen because every now and then I think he pops up on people's recommend it's. But he's always got those kind of videos that's like a person did something. This is what happened to their internal organs, and it's basically like a House episode, but it's based on real things that have happened in hospitals, and they've had to make them as like case studies. And some when you watch them, you're like, oh, maybe I don't want to do that anymore. It's like someone just eating a load of candy. You'd think that's fine, whatever, not a problem. And then he'll go into detail about how because they had like this one genetic disorder that meant that their intestines couldn't deal with large amounts of sugar at once. It started fermenting, and that fermentation caused this to happen, which then meant this happened, and his brain started to swell. And then it goes from I ate too much candy to he was pronounced dead on arrival. Yeah, the lava lamp one was a weird one. I think the guy was. I think he was a major alcoholic, and people were trying to make him go cold turkey. And he got to a point where he was really like out of it, and he thought the lava lamp might contain alcohol, and so he drank it. And then he got kidney stones from the oxalic compounds in the lava lamp, which meant his kidneys failed, which meant his entire body started to shut down. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. But then he's got some like really like out there ones that like have happened because like I say a lot of them they're based off medical reports, and he kind of like tweaks them to make them into like sort of case studies, I think. But there's one where a farmer was trying to put antibiotics into his cows, and he was doing this. It was all fine, but one of the cows was a bit temperamental and knocked him over, and he fell. And when he looked down, the needle was in his leg, and the plunger had been pressed, and he'd basically given himself an entire cow-sized injection of a vaccine. And his body started to shut down because the vaccine had compounds in that the human body should not have in it, but cows are perfectly fine to have because of like I think it's not so much that we can't have them; it's just we shouldn't have them in that level. So because it was like if it was a small dose, he would have been fine, but because it was like an entire cow's worth of medication, yeah, at that point it was like, oh, that's not a good thing. And so he turns up at the hospital with the needle and is like, yeah, this happened. And his vision was going blurry. And it was all. It was basically his body was having an absolute fit whilst it was trying to break down all these compounds because it couldn't do it quick enough. See, there's another one that I remember that was like a kid that had some really antique toys, and the kid slowly started getting like issues balancing and weird stuff, and they had no idea what was going on. And it turns out they were really antique toys that had like the lead and arsenic in the paint, and it was a kid. So we're talking like a 2-year-old kid that chews on toys. Yeah, kid had heavy kid had heavy metal poisoning, and they had no idea. I think it's just because like these toys had been handed down, and so they're like, oh well, yeah, family members gifted to give them to us, so they must be fine. Family member wouldn't give us anything bad. I need to have a quick. I need to have a look on his stuff after I finish streaming because I haven't watched his stuff for a while, so he's probably got a good few more videos. Every now and then, I do the typical. I'm sitting working from home. My brain is dead. I need something to do. Binge watching session where I'll just click on the start of Chubby Emu's video, just click on the playlist and go just play everything from the start. Just douse me in medical knowledge I'm never going to need, and make me concerned about eating too much licorice. Which, yeah, don't do that because your heart will fail. Okay, so this one will go down like that. This one goes sideways and becomes the actual top part of the leg. That's where the transition goes between the curve inwards and the curve around. You say that I think he's mentioned himself at one point he had a vitamin B12 deficiency, but he didn't realize. The only reason he found out was he had energy drinks. He'd feel really, really low, have no energy. He would drink a bunch of energy drinks over the course of a week and feel so much better, even though he was eating the same things. It was felt perfectly fine. Stopped the energy drinks, and then he started feeling tired again. And eventually, he went to hospital for it, and they're like, "Yeah, you need to eat more stuff that has vitamin B12 in because you have none, and it is going to kill you if you don't have any because you need that to live." I hate how many things there are that we need to eat, otherwise we just die. Like, vitamin B12. What does that do? Oh, it's nothing. It's just that whole it helps fuel the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. Without vitamin B12, you cannot have a metabolism. It's like, oh, that sounds important. Maybe we should make sure we have that. Yeah, quite a lot of people I think have. I mean, I know I definitely do because I very rarely leave the house. Well, I say rarely. I pretty much never leave the house. With working from home and having groceries delivered, the only time I really need to leave the house for anything is to take trash out. And since I live alone, that's like once a week, and I'm out for maybe a minute. And because I work on a screen all day, I have the curtains closed so I don't have glare on the screen ruining my eyes. So I pretty much guarantee that I do not have the right amount when it comes to vitamin D. But I live in the UK, and so if you go to a doctor about this, they say, "Oh, have you tried losing weight?" But yeah, I'm sure that's the reason why everything else is going wrong. It's just because of the weight. Yeah. I really wish that would be true. We could save so many problems with that. I used to get around it in my old place, although granted, where I lived before, we didn't work from home because COVID hadn't happened yet. But I got around not going out very often apart from the walk to and from work by having a daylight bulb because it was fine. It's just like the one bulb in the middle of the room, like most houses have. Unfortunately, I live in an apartment now, and the people that made the apartment had the cool idea of having recessed lighting of there's 9 bulbs in this room, all recessed into the ceiling. It emits the exact same amount of light as having one single one in the middle of the room. But because of the nature of the fittings, can't get daylight bulbs for them because they're just really specific, which isn't fun really. I would much rather be able to have daylight bulbs. At some point, I have pressed the thing that has messed up how the normals are working. Is it you? Individual origins, no. Active element. I think it's you. What am I pressing? Okay, that is the full stop. What I do have somewhere, I have one of the actual daylight lamps that I bought a couple of years ago now. I think relatively close to when COVID started. I was like, if I'm not going to be leaving the house at all, I'm not going to need to work. If I'm working from home, I'll get one of these. I'm sure it'll be fine. And then proceeded to forget to use it for most of the time. So let's assume that one's going to be going down there on the edge. It looks like this is assuming that there's going to be 4 big polygons. Ah, I see where I've gone wrong. This one, I needed to do differently. Let's delete that edge. Have a good sleep. Thanks for popping in. That was what I was missing. We need another one there. Okay, so I think we're merging this one. Oh yeah, you're definitely not on the right. There we go. Am I doing this right or am I missing one? I could well be missing. Yeah, I think I might be missing one because I really would have thought that this would be more down here. Hmm. Go down one. Hmm. Okay. If I do need an extra one, where would I get it from? I could. Would you get it from here? So let's delete those faces. Pop in another edge loop there. And you extrude and scale down a bit. You two merge, and then we have that. Then we have enough. We go. So you and you. Last. Merge it last. There we go. That should be enough to make a reasonable thing now. Right, pivot point. Change that to median. There we go. Then if we extend you down, leave you in, and merge. We have the beginnings of what could actually be called a leg. Do you have to remember as well there is going to be a subdivision modifier on this? I don't need to make them perfectly smooth. So I think at the knee we want it something like that so that it's got something to bend with. It has extra polygons to stretch and tweak when the leg bends. And then I am going to carefully cheat this by just extruding down and then scaling down a bit. until we get down to the next hellish part, which is going to be the feet. Because he should actually model the feet like properly, or just assume they're going to be boots. And part of me wants to go with the lazy route and just say, yeah, I won't. I'll just do like assume they're boots. But I know there's people out there that would love for me to actually have modelled feet in the boots. Okay. Subdivision modifier on. Okay, they do look flat at the front. I will give it that. So we are going to need to like go from the side view now. And make sure everything comes out properly and is in the right line. But not terrible. I don't want to go too far because this is going to change depending on when I move the other ones as well. If I move these forward, it's going to bring the whole thing forward. I do in fact remember that Ginger. I believe his dying words were, "Bury me with my chocolate hearts." And then on his grave they placed roses, and they were like, "Oh, that's kind of sweet, isn't it? Let's make sure we make sure roses are overpriced for the rest of the world." I may or may not be misremembering this, but as far as I know, that's how it worked. I mean, the capitalists wouldn't tell us any other way, would they? You need to be fixed. It just sounds like you gave all that ammunition to me in Hellfire, in Helldivers, even with how effective I feel like I always was. I was fine. I knew where to place the artillery, not next to you. I do believe she be thick. I also do believe I have definitely messed up the proportions of these legs. I mean, I can safely say it was not armor level of chaotic. That's the thing. I had the Gatling gun. Well, no, I had the regular machine gun turret because I didn't have. I unlocked the sentry gun for the Gatling after we stopped playing. But the thing is, you just need to remember to put them away from where you're going to be standing. Because they are dumbfire turrets, they will just point and shoot anything. I did the other day when Zon was playing. I heard Zon say, "Oh, there's a thing that means that turrets don't target you," and I was like, "Where?" I don't know if it's a ship upgrade or whether Zon just misread one of the things. I know that looking through them, the rocket launcher turret that you get later on only targets hostiles, which will be wonderful. Because that, as long as we don't stand in the way, we'll be fine. But to be fair, that goes for all rockets. Don't stand in the way, you'll be fine. I think what was the most terrifying was everyone having access to the minefield. I knew it was risky me taking it, but at least my ones had blinky lights on them. Oh, that's a shame. I mean, it kind of makes sense, but because I thought the same was going to happen with the guns at first, like the sentry guns. I was like, I want to take like the machine gun and the Gatling gun. That way, I can alternate their use. Means I have like twice as many guns to use. And the first time I tried it, it didn't look like it was going to work. I don't know why it didn't. I think it was because the system was at the point where it was about to shut down for Steam maintenance for the day and kick everyone out of the game. But it didn't, for some reason, didn't let me. So I'm like, oh, fine, whatever. I'll just, take the orbital strike instead. And then when I tried again, it's like, oh, it does let me take both. And so now, depending on the type of mission it is, if it's a defense one, or if it's one that's like go down and hunt these certain things, or you need to defend these locations, I will be like, okay, ignore the orbital bombardment. We don't need it. We're going to be defending. I'll take the guns, the machine gun, and one of the um one of the minefields. But if it's one of the ones where I'm going out and having to deal with stuff, I might, at least at the moment, not use my anti-personnel minefield because we all have access. We've all been given access to the incendiary one for now. So I might as well use the free one and keep a slot spare, which I can put another sentry gun in. And when there's only me running around, I don't have to concern myself quite so much with friendly fire. If I get shot, it's my own fault. Let's see. So 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Looks like what we're building this with. Unless I want to add more butt polygons. I don't. I haven't really tried either yet. I just wanted something that has like explosive impact. So I don't have to rely on using hand grenades for closing bug holes. Which is what I currently deal with. Which they're fine. They're fine. They do their job. But I wouldn't mind not having to worry about that. The thing is, I don't want it to be a secondary. I want to have like a gun that still works as a gun. That still has like because at the moment I use the machine gun for the sheer armor penetrating power it has on some of the beefier things. Granted, I don't play on like hard difficulty or anything. I am gonna have to work out how to connect butt cheeks together. I'm also going to be not progressing with any kind of sculpting. We are working only on the leg part of this now. Because I still don't trust Twitch. Yeah, I've still been using was it the Liberator, the original gun that you get. I mean, it does the job. I mean, maybe shotgun would be okay. I've not tried it yet. But the problem is, you have to spend your medals to pick them up. I'm like, okay, which one do I actually want to try and spend the medals on? Because once I've bought it, I can't not use it. I can't just get a refund for the medals I just spent because I didn't like the gun. Right, some point around here, we're going to be needing to do more of this weird jiggery pokery craziness. That sounds pretty good. I mean, it's one of the annoying things about. Whilst I'm fine with it because it's more realistic. It is also mildly annoying when you're like, I really want to reload this, but I still have like 3/4 of the mag in there. Gaming has taught me over all these years compulsively reload. You are going to rotat rotat banana. What would be really nice with it is if you could actually have like a training room to try out the weapons. So before you invest like 20 or 30 medals to like pick up a shotgun you might not like, it would be nice if it gave you like a training thing. That's like, okay, it's a VR simulation or something or whatever. And it just gives you a bunch of targets, unlimited ammo pickups that are just like sitting there in a container that refresh constantly, and the gun. And you can just mess around with the gun and go, do I enjoy playing with this weapon? And then if you do, you just go back to the store and you buy it. I mean, let's face it, that's what they have with real weapons. I know that they did that with the bows that I bought years ago. You go to the store, they had a range there, so you could try it and make sure it was like the right bow weight and everything. Yeah, the right draw weight, the right length. So why would future war people not have a similar thing? My God, look at that thickness. Since Ezzy is not here, I shall do my stretch on my own. The sad part is I actually I don't know how to unhide. There is a there are hidden vertices, which is why it's like I started making them and then I never finished them. I hid them because I didn't trust Twitch. I mean, considering I haven't like properly modeled for coming close to 10 years now, no longer than that. Jeez. Oh my God. See, what was it? I think my first year at uni was 2005. So 2009, I would have left uni, and I think 2010, 2011, I still messed with it because I still kind of like I was unemployed because obviously you leave university, you never find a job. I couldn't find a job for years, and so the way I got through the boredom, since I didn't stream back then, or and YouTube and all that were only they were there, but they weren't like amazing. The way I got through the boredom was game design still. Maybe thinking maybe I'll be the one that makes a good game that makes millions. I never did because I never finished one. And then I got a job. And then I stopped because it involved too much energy to do that, plus still keep working. So we would be looking at probably 11 or 12 years ago would have been the last time I really tried to do something. So considering it's been that long, also what oh my God, I was terrified then. I was like, what is all this sculpt draw stuff on the side? And it's because it was like looking at the sculpt part. I was terrified that I'd clicked a button I shouldn't have. There we go. That's why it wasn't showing them, because it had like done a different thing. But they're not detailed. There's no nipples. They're literally just polygons. So, but considering I haven't done this for a while, I'm actually not dissatisfied with the fact that I've been able to make something relatively decent so far. Granted, the body is the easiest of the bits. The face will be difficult. And the legs will be difficult. Not the legs, the feet. Depending on whether or not I decide to actually model the feet, I might just like do the classic, just turn them into blocks. I don't think I'm going to be doing a Seb and having like streams using this model for other purposes. And having the foot redeem. Because I know there are people out there that would donate for that, and that's terrifying. But who am I to shame them for that? When I have willingly crafted myself to be this. But oh yeah, I think I will just double check when's the right ad starts in half an hour, so I can stop now and not worry about like the fact that ads had just played, because that would be evil. Let's see who is online. Ooh, weeny weeny miny mo. I raided Zon last time. I'll raid stars this. No. That's the wrong click. Click on stars. Yeah, I raided Zon last time, so let's raid stars. We've not raided stars in at least like a week. Doesn't help that stars is usually the only one on at this time of night to raid. But yeah, as always, it's been fun. I mean, I've made progress on the model. My brain is slowly remembering things. It's like one of those really old engines that like screeches and cracks and creaks and then suddenly starts happening. So the fact that I'm remembering that, it's coming back. So hopefully, at least next time we can probably like work on the arms maybe. See if I can get the topology down for the arms. Because I would like to get back into this because I'm enjoying it, and that's the hard thing when you're not streaming it. You've got that kind of extra little bit on you to be like, do I want to do this or do I want to like load up a game? But when you're streaming it, can't not do it, and you can't procrastinate and look at something else. You've got to do it. Hence why I've been doing this for like 3 weeks, 3 streams in a row now, I think. Or 3 of the past 4. But yeah, I will leave it there and we will raid stars. And I will stop rambling because I need to turn my brain off, get ready for sleep. So yeah, thank you everyone for watching. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.